a little bit windy today too, so if the sound is awful, I apologize, but we're working with what we got here. So this is the, I'll remember what it's called here in a second. You'll know what it is. This is the unloader. This is the bypass. This is plumbed right back to the tank, and I'll show you where that's plumbed to. And then obviously the pressure hose there. This is the fuel tank. Innocent bystander should be pleased. I actually welded this up and welded it on the frame of that pipe top trailer. Avoid a pipe top trailer at all costs if you possibly can. It's next to impossible to mount stuff to it, minus welding, and even then you've got a little tiny surface area to weld it to. But I'll show you here. This is the feed, and this is the bypass. So here's the feed from the hose reel, and I'll show you guys that in just a second. But here is the discharge. It's 2 inch all the way down to 1 inch on a really short piece of spa flex. Sorry if you're upside down, I'm not super good at this filming thing yet. But this is spa flex, super rigid. That's 1 inch. The more you feed your pressure washer to an extent, the better off it is. So with that 2 inch, and before this was 1 1/4 inch, but it was flipped to the back for the other unit. And this is uphill, but for some reason I get more GPM out of this setup, and I think it's probably because this is longer, the 2 inch piece. Get more GPM out of that than we did the other setup, which was 1 1/4 inch, I believe. But it comes to a dump valve here, and there's a piece that we slip fit in there, and it goes past the tire, and we can angle it back. So if we're leaving a commercial job, we can just dump it in the parking lot to get down to 75 gallons. We don't really drive with over 75 gallons. It seems like 75 gallons of water is pretty optimal to buffer at for this machine, at least. And the old machine. The old machine was 5 gallons a minute. This one's 7, and 75 is still sufficient. So this, you can see here, there's no bulkhead fitting or anything. This just sets, or this goes right into the tank by a couple inches, discharges your bypass, and I just use a step bit and I friction fit these poly hoses. I mean, it's not going anywhere. You can see the top move. That thing's tighter than my old prom dress. So I don't really worry about bulkhead fittings, especially on the top, and if it's just water going in. This, I'll take back what I said about bulkhead fittings for a second, because on the other side of this is the, oh gosh, what's it called? The float valve, the Hudson float valve. And it stops it at 200 gallons. It doesn't let the tank get over 200 gallons. There's a piece of PVC on the other side, threaded long enough so that the bottom of the float valve is at 200 gallons. This pulls water, and all it does is pull water through this loop, and I'll show you that in just a second, to clean the injector. The trailer's in a little bit of a disrobed state, if you will. It's relatively empty because we've had a bunch of commercial jobs and we've had to take stuff on and off, but I like having this space back here in case we have to carry 55 gallon drums for the 12 volt system there, and I'll take that apart here in just a second. But here's the other line, and because this is chemicals, this is a lot more of a positive seal than just using a step bit to drill a hole and drop the tube down in there, or the draw hose, or whatever you want to call it. But on all these fittings, I really like, or on the fittings that may or may not come off relatively frequently for whatever reason, and come off frequently for these is probably twice, 3 times a year at best. But I like these, makes it quicker and easier. It's just a little handle type hose clamp. But that runs up, heads that way. People balk at the 90 degrees. This thing pulls soap just fine, no questions asked. And that may or may not be due to the injector that I just bought. And this injector is got a proportioner in it. This is a metering injector. You can put different proportioners in it to get to the ratio that you want. So far, I like it a lot. It's already dinged up pretty good though, and I've had it less than 2 weeks, and I have no idea how it got dinged up like that. But I like it. It's stainless steel. Don't have to worry about stuff getting gummed up as much as you did with the brass. But when you pour water, this one's water, this is soap. So if we want to downstream, we flip that on. And if we want to flush the injector, we flip it back off, turn the water on. Now with both of these closed, there's a marginal difference in PSI apparently if you have your injector capped off. I've never really noticed. So take that with a grain of salt. Other people may think otherwise. There's a hose reel. That stuff squeezed on there pretty tight because we had a commercial job yesterday and we had to pull all 200 feet of it back. This stuff flexes like crazy. This is a 200-foot hose reel, 3/4 inch hose reel, and even though it's only 5/8, that stuff crunches down pretty good, which I like because if we have to run on another couple hundred feet or even less, we've got the space to do it. So that's a big old monster hose reel, and for good reason. This, you'll notice, is a twin from Monsters from Racer's video. I bought a handful of these at Ace Hardware. This one's still lasting. It's plastic, but it hasn't failed me yet. Keeps working. We've got this set up on one of these hoses that everybody in our industry laughs at. But this thing is super useful for rinsing out buckets, hosing off gear. You don't have to disconnect this hose. And whatever this, you just shut it off. But whatever flow is getting messed up, if any, on this doesn't really matter because you're just going to the bucket tank. But here's one of 2 filters. This filter I got at Tractor Supply. I use 2, and I use them before the water goes in the tank because on the top you can see there's a screen up there. There's nothing really getting in the tank. So use it here, keeps things out of, and that could be another reason why that flows better than the last one. The last one had a filter in line. So who knows? But I like the way this is set up. The other filter is on the other side there, and that's the one we put right on the spigot. I use the double, probably because I'm superstitious and paranoid, and an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But probably don't need 2, one's probably sufficient. All these hanging straps are where our guns used to go. But like I said, the trailer is a little discombobulated because of the commercial work, and we've been pulling stuff on and off, so everything's in my garage. But here's the line for suction, and you can see it down there. There's the filter on the end for pulling out of the buckets for the 12-volt kit. And I'll unbuckle the 12-volt kit so you can see it here. Might need 2 hands. I might need 3 hands. All right. Pretty simple and easy. Just wired it. I used shrink wrap on everything. Just a little dabby do of dielectric grease. I'm not an electrician or a Mario Blummer, so plumbing and electrical is pretty new to me. So a lot of this stuff may be slightly over-engineered, but maybe not. I think a lot of it looks pretty similar to some of the other stuff I've seen out there. And then I'll unbuckle the box so you can see that. This, I took the barb out because I got another couple barbs coming, and those are straight barbs. What I had on hand was 90 degrees, and that I will tell you is not over engineering. Don't use 90 degrees on your 12 volt pump, or at least that's what I've heard from more than one 12 volt pump pro. But there it is. You can see there's a little bit of stuff getting in there, which isn't good. I didn't know, so I'm glad I opened this up. I have to end up cleaning that out. Wonder how that stuff got in there. That salt, that's not good. That's no bueno. It's a little SH. So we'll end up taking that apart, cleaning that up. Good news is, got a little dab of dielectric grease on everything, so hopefully the corrosion stays down. There's a little dab in there. There's a little dab behind all the electrical connections that I shrink wrapped. And even the, whatever the little electrical Shazam is that clips two wires into one. I don't know. But there's the fuse. I wired it just like the diagram. A bunch of extra fuses that are just chilling in salt residue. So I'll have to check those. But this line in, another 90 degree. I got a straight barb on the way, and actually banjo fittings. And this will end up getting changed to 3/4. I've already got about a mile of the 3/4 poly braid, 3/4 ID poly braid hose, so that won't be too big of a deal. And then the drop stick just goes in. I set a bucket on this side when I want to flush. Turn the valve, water fills the bucket. Turn it off, empty the bucket, fill the bucket, or you just let it run. Greg from the forum recommends that you flush about 20 gallons through 12 volt system. I'm a little impatient, so I've been doing about 15, but I do shut it off because I'm standing right there doing nothing but squeezing the trigger on the gun anyways. This is 225 feet of the United hose from Canada. Brand new, just got it put on there. And then I blew a fitting into two pieces. I used the brass fitting and shouldn't have, so I got a high pressure stainless steel fitting coming from Doltmeyer. So we'll get that in there and get the thing plumbed back in properly to that whip line. It's kind of pretzeled underneath there, but the trailer's usually in a lot better shape, if you can believe it. It's just kind of banged up because it's been busy. Just random tools, keeps them dry. There's nozzles in the top, spare nozzles. I got another bucket with a bunch of different fittings. Spare gas. I'm sure you can ask 100 different people on the forum why you should keep a spare gas can if you can't figure it out, but I'm sure you can. Spare fittings, stuff that's fallen off, broken, exploded. I keep it because who knows why. Viting seals, Viting O-rings. Fix up, changing O-rings. I've never used this before in my life. Pressure gauge. Bought it thinking it would be cool on the machine, like a old school aircraft carrier engine room or something. But just a bunch of spare fittings. About a million rolls of Teflon tape. Spare fittings of all flavors. These I won't break them open because I don't want to dig them out, but one of them has respirators, goggles, rubber gloves, spares of consumables that I absolutely don't want to get wet, whereas this one sometimes will get a little bit wet. But plastic bags for wrapping outlets, then window cleaning stuff that's probably not been opened since before the Great Depression, so who knows what's still in there. I keep the oxalic in there too because I have room, so it gets open to get the oxalic out. But otherwise, it's pretty simple. Somebody else asked to see the truck. There's nothing too fancy about it. Just got the ladder racks. That aluminum ladder is 24, the other one's 32. I try to avoid them at all costs. And not because I'm afraid of heights, but because getting them down is a pain. There's another little step ladder up there, I think you can see it. So I'll make another one of these when we get everything put back together, but you guys know how it goes when you're all finished with the job. You're ready to pack up and skip town. So the trailer is, again, discombobulated, but I got a couple buckets in the back seat too. I'll show you those when I get everything put back together, but usually carry brooms, brushes of different flavors, different varieties. House washing signs are actually on the sides of the tote, which I don't think I'm going to put them back on this because the season's almost over, and when the spring starts, I won't have the trailer anymore. It'll be a box truck or a flatbed, still trying to decide. Hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know.